Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to 4.5 Area Models and Partial Products. So we're going to be continuing our previous lesson talking about area models, and now, of course, with 2 digits for each factor. And so you're using area models and properties of operations to multiply 2-digit numbers. Let's go ahead and begin our solve and share. Right now we're on page 145. So please make sure that you're ready. And our math tip for this lesson is you can use drawings, area models, and properties of operations to multiply or model the map.
A playground is divided into 4 sections as shown in the diagram. Find the area of the playground. Explain how you found the answer. Solve this problem using any strategy you choose.
So since in our previous lesson, we talked about how when you have a factor, you can break it apart into place value in order to make it easier for you to multiply. For example, here we know this is actually going to be 24 feet and this is going to be 18 feet. But instead of doing 18 times 24, you can do 10 times 20, then 10 times 4, 8 times 20, and then 8 times 4 as a way for you to get partial products for you to add up later. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. 10 times 20 is our first part. And so that's going to give us 200. Our next part is 10 times 4. And that'll give you 40. That's our next partial product. Then we have 8 times 20, or 20 times 8, both of them work. And so 8 times 2, that's going to be 16, in this case, 160. And then we have 8 times 4, which is going to give you 32. And we add all of those up. And so now, when I get my total, you'll see that sometimes it's a little bit easier for me to go ahead and combine the numbers that are alike. In this case, I'm going to get 360 here. And then I have 40 and 32. That's going to give me 72. So I'll have a 2 in my ones place. 6 plus 7, that's going to give me 13, because 7 plus 7 is 14. Take away 1 is 13. Regroup one of the ones. 1 plus 3 is 4. So I should get 432 square feet. Because we are talking about area, you need to say that it is square feet. As in, that's how many squares would have fit inside it. All right, let's go ahead and begin our video lesson. So please make sure that you're on the next page, on page 146, and you're following along with the example.
How can you use the distributive property to multiply? There are 15 players on each baseball team of the Strikeout Club. There are 25 teams. How many players are on all the teams in the Strikeout Club? Use the area model and the distributive property to find 25 times 15. The area of the rectangle is the product of 25 times 15. Break apart 15 into 10 plus 5. Multiply each part by 25. Add the partial products. 25 times 15 equals 375. You can break up the area model in a different way. Break apart 25 into 20 plus 5. Add the partial products. 25 times 15 equals 375. You can also break apart both factors. What is the sum of the partial products?
Select your answer.
25 times 15 equals 375. There are 375 players on all the teams.
How does an area model illustrate the distributive property?
So when we think about an area model is just one way for us to try to solve. And of course, you can use it when there's a number that has 2 digits or 1 digit for the factors. And so an area model just shows the breaking apart of either or both of the factors and what you multiply to get each of the partial products, because that makes it a little bit easier for us to solve. Let's go ahead and get started with our guided and independent practice, where we're going to be doing the exact same thing. For number 1, what 4 simpler multiplication problems are used to find 24 times 23? And you can go ahead and look at that. But now we're going to also be checking our notes before we get started on this as another way to explain it. So around 4.5, area models and partial products. I can use area models and properties of operations to multiply 2-digit numbers. When I want to find part of the products for specific areas of an area model, I can break the factors apart. For example, here, 25 times 15, I broke it into 25 times 10 and 25 times 5. And so I got 250 plus 125, so you should get 375. Another way, of course, you could separate both of them, break it apart to 25. So now, instead of breaking apart the 15, broke apart the 25 only. So now 15 times 20 and 15 times 5. And so again, 375. Any area model can be used to find the partial products if factors are broken, then added. For example, here we have 24 times 18. So here we have 10 times 20. And so we can go ahead and put our product right there. 10 times 20, that's going to give you 200. Then we have 10 times 4, and that's going to give you 40. Then we have 20 times 8, that gives you 160. And 4 times 8, which gives you 32. And then you would add all of them up. And so now we have 18 times 24 with our total product being, here we have 360, 40 plus 32, 72. And if you think this looks familiar, like the question that we talked about earlier, you're correct. So yes, you can go ahead and put your total right there. And now I can add the partial products to find the actual product. So these are our partial products, and so now we can try to solve the actual one. Now looking at our guided practice, it says what 4 simpler multiplication problems were used to find 24 times 23. And so it's just asking you, what did we use to solve that? So here we have 20 times 20. And then you can go ahead and put your answer there, 20 times 3. Then we have 4 times 20. And then 4 times 3. And so each time what we're doing is we're taking this and we're multiplying it by the other side, taking this, multiplying it by the other side until all of the factors are used. So you should have gotten 400 here. Should have gotten 80 above that, or 80 right underneath. Oh, sorry, 60 and then 80. Let's go back. 20 times 3, that's going to give you 60. Then we have 80. Then we have 12. And so your total should have been 2 here. 6 plus 8, or 6 plus 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 plus 8, that's going to give you 15. And then 400 plus 100 becomes 500. So 552. For number 2, how can the area model and distributive property help you multiply 12 times, use 12 times 6 to explain? So now we're just explaining the steps and why an area model could be helpful to solve that. Scroll down a little bit. All right, so how can an area model and the distributive property help you multiply? And we're using 12 times 6. So An area model can break apart the factors, of course, into tens and ones. I can break apart factors, and I'm going to say into its place value. Into its place value. Like, we can do 12 times 10. Plus 12 times 6. Or, if you wanted to the other way around, 10 times, let's do 16 actually. 16 times 10 plus 16 times 2. So that's another way we could have done it. And of course, we're using the distributive property to multiply each of the tens and ones. If you're done with number 2, we're going to go ahead and work on number 3. If you need to pause, go ahead. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. It says use the area model and the distributive property to find 35 times 12. And so we don't need to fill in this one right now because we're going to fill out the partial products first. So 30 times 10, that's what we're doing right here, what this area is filled in for. So we get 300. 5 times 10, that's going to give us 50. And you could fill this in along the bottom too, 350. 30 times 2, that's going to give you 60. Then 5 times 2, that's going to give you 10. And so now we can actually add them up together. This plus this will give you another 60. So 60 plus 60, 120 plus 300 becomes 420. And now we can actually answer this part right here. And you'll notice, go ahead and pause if you need to, but you'll notice in your homework questions that it is broken apart in a very similar way. It says draw an area model to find each product. So you can go ahead and draw it over here and then write your equations that you use to help you find the areas for each part, for each question right here. But it is done in a very similar way of multiplying these, but you have to draw your own area models. That is the end of this lesson. So you can go ahead and start working on the independent practice and of course the problem solving on the back. Please make sure you write your answers neatly so that way it can be graded. And if you have any questions, leave them on as a comment on Google Classroom. All right, I'll see you in our next video.